Hey, how you doing out there, survivors, and welcome to the first episode of The Hidden Gems. This is a new component here on the channel where I'm talking to fellow content creators, streamers, YouTubers, and talking about games that we absolutely love that maybe slipped under the surface or got, caught between the cracks. Today, I'm delighted for my first episode of Hidden Gems to be speaking to a fellow content creator that I became friendly with through the amazing community of Twitch. And we've become very good mates through that. That is Mr. Megaboss. Welcome to the show, Mr. Megaboss.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be the first entry on your Hidden Gems component of your YouTube. I am so stoked. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, it's been amazing getting to know you and just appreciate you reaching out and allowing me to be here. So.
Oh man, it's so funny because half the reason I think I instantly wanted you to be the first guest on the show was I was running the show around in my head about what I'd like to do. And then I was on Twitch and I came across you playing the game we're going to speak about. And it just brought back all these nostalgic memories watching you. That's what Twitch does. Twitch is just a haven for nostalgia. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, I gotta get Megaboss on the show. If knowing that he's as big a fan, maybe I was gonna say as big a fan, maybe a bigger fan of this game than I am. So what I'll do is I'll kind of throw it over to you, Megaboss, to tell us the game and tell us a little bit about a basic overview of it.
Yeah, so Legend of Dragoon is considered a Japanese RPG, JRPG. It came out right toward the end of the PlayStation 1 life cycle. And it really put a lot of budget into their cutscenes, even had some voice acted lines, which again, wasn't common for PS1 games even then. So especially for a JRPG to have voice acted lines. So it really did come in at the height of popularity for Final Fantasy. And also it set itself apart. It was known as the Final Fantasy killer at the time. It set itself apart though with a very unique battle system. Really fun, interesting, and different characters, and a story kind of dipped in medieval and like cyber tech lore involving dragons. It's freaking like, how do you get, so it's really random, but it's an amazing game.
I think that covers it really, really well because I like you, I imagine back at this time, I had 1997, I played what I consider to be my first big JRPG, which was Final Fantasy VII, which is probably why it has such a big place in my heart because it was one of the first, I obviously was into Zelda and stuff, but I hadn't played kind of a narratively driven game like that to that point, or at least on that scale anyway. But I kind of then became obsessed with JRPGs and everything Square Enix put out, I was buying. I even got set up an import, got a modified PlayStation 1 so I could import games from the US because we never got Chrono Cross, we didn't get Xenogears, so I wanted to import all those games. But I saw this on the shelf in Game, which was a retailer over here, and like that, I picked it up and read the back of the box and was just like, this sounds like it ticks all of my boxes for JRPG goodness. Like you, I have a very big place in my heart for this game.
Yeah, no, and it's cool because I owe a lot of my love for Final Fantasy JRPGs to a few friends who just saw something like that in the store and they grabbed it, and then I started to pick up that mentality a year later. But I have this fond memory of going to one of my friend's house back in the day. It was gonna be my first time hanging out at his house. We met at school. And then we did the whole thing, exchange home phone, not cell phone, home phone numbers.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm gonna come over. And then so his mom answered the door and he's like, he's upstairs. It's nice to meet you. Feeling awkward walking in, not seeing this game, but him in the overworld of Final Fantasy VII. And all I remember was I had a PlayStation Underground demo disc. Now, if you guys don't know, they used to send these discs to your house. You didn't download anything. They came with the magazine. And they were little snippets of games. So I played Metal Gear Solid 1, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 7 on these little underground discs. And you get about 5-10 minutes of gameplay and that's it. So I played the Final Fantasy 7 demo. I walked in and there he is playing 7, but it's the overworld. I'm like, where? I feel like I recognize this, but I have no idea where you are. And that's kind of where it started for me. And then, so they were always kind of famous for picking up the random games that just sparked their interest. And so they were the ones to introduce me to Legend of Dragoon. after I'd beaten 7 and Final Fantasy 10, and those were the only ones under my belt, and fell in love with it immediately. Like seriously, I think what caught my eye the first time I booted it up was the battle system.
Oh yeah.
You know, it just didn't look like anything, because I'd put in hundreds of hours into Final Fantasy 10 and 7. So I kind of got a feel for obviously the turn-based RPG style. But then Legend of Dragoon boots up and it's this whole different beast. You see these little like squares and they like close in as your character's coming in for an attack, and you have to time those or else the move doesn't work. And if you don't do that, then the whole game's gonna be very challenging. You know,
it's almost got like rhythm game vibes, which is, again, like when you look at it now, RPGs do this all the time now, where they'll cross over into other genres. You know what I mean? But back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they weren't known for trying to do too many weird, wild, or wonderful things. It was like Square might, because they were the biggest in the industry and they could afford to take chances and gambles. But a lot of the other companies would just be like, well, we got to have an amazing story, and the battle system is going to be similar to a lot of other JRPGs. This game, as you say, it almost felt like a beat 'em up mixed with a dance game mixed with a JRPG.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good description, I think. Yeah.
Because the only thing I can liken it to is, like, I remember when I played FF8 and you had Squall's Renzokuken.
Trigger system, yeah. Trigger system, yeah.
And that felt like a very, like, as much as I enjoyed that system, it felt kind of like a last minute addition, like, oh, this would be kind of cool, let's throw it in just on Squall, you know. Whereas I feel like in this, it's baked into the DNA of the battle system. You can't get good at this game without getting good at that.
Yeah, just, you know, I have fond memories, and again, I owe some of what I like today to those friendships back in the day. Like they introduced me to Shadow Colossus. Like one day I just walk in, and my friend's like, okay, I'm not gonna tell you anything. Boot up this game, sit in that chair, and you have one of the chairs with like the speakers in it. Like,
oh wow!
And so the music in that game is everything. The sound in that game is everything. So I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm this random guy. But yeah, so they introduced me to cool games. But going back to Legend of Dragoon, you know, it's very long too, and it really does take you on this crazy journey. There's themes dipped in religion, friendship. It covers so much throughout the 4-disc journey of it that it just it's hard not to fall in love with it by the end. You know, you just feel really connected with the whole experience.
So one of the things that we bonded over immediately was when I saw you playing this, I came in and vented my frustration that I'd been in another person's stream, and they kept comparing it to Final Fantasy and saying it's just a rip-off of Final Fantasy. And straight away, when I told that to you, I saw your reaction and I was like, this dude gets it. He gets it.
Well, that's just a gross misinterpretation. It's really like, okay, just because it's turn-based doesn't mean it's a Final Fantasy game. It's
no.
And I've heard the same comparison of Dart to Cloud, but they couldn't be more different. Dart's kind of a go-getter. Cloud's like a tortured soul who's trying to find himself. Dart is nothing like that. He's more on a path of vengeance. Throughout the story, which you'll find if you play it, it's intertwined with like this sort of fate of being or carrying the weight of a Dragoon, what that means to be a Dragoon, and sort of the lore of the previous Dragoons in the story. I'm not going to give away too much, but yeah, so he has to carry a lot of burdens in it, and he takes it and he says, we're going to get this done. Whereas Cloud, the compared, you know, to him, is more like stuck, and he's trying to figure out who he is and trying to claw his way back to just normal, to being a human, to finding his way in the world. So and Cloud really immediately, like, at first does not come across as caring about anybody else. Like Cloud
really seems reserved and like, I'm in this for me. I don't care about what you need. Whereas Dart, as you say, Dart immediately seems to care about the people around him. You know, he doesn't seem like he's a loner or a lone wolf character. I totally agree. I think people literally based it off of their character models are vaguely similar. I think
spiky hair.
Spiky hair, like every other JRPG character.
It's like red, and Cloud never wears red, so it's like that's where it literally ends with their similarities. And there's like, well, he has a big sword. No, he has a pretty normal sized sword.
It's a generic enough short sword, like a regular, broadsword.
You know. If we're going to talk about swords, this conversation can go in a very different direction.
The next question though that I'd like to ask you is like, and I mean, this is something where I feel like I would have thoughts as well, but I want to get your thoughts first and foremost, which is, what do you think that this, there was a lot of JRPGs in this generation. What do you feel like about this? It does better than any other JRPG at that time, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it's up against, if we're talking about that era specifically, it's up against my favorite, which is Final Fantasy IX.
Oof.
It's a hard one to beat because Final Fantasy IX, for me, it checks every single box. It dives into pretty much every character. There's a couple that, get less, but every character gets an origin. Every character gets a completion. You feel like, okay. And then the music in 9 is beyond God tier.
Top tier. Yeah, 100%.
Chef's Kiss. It's probably the top musical journey of any Final Fantasy. And I say that along with the creator at the time, Hironobu Sakaguchi and Nobuo Uematsu, who both said the very much the same thing, that 9 was the equivalent of their greatest creation, basically. So, but I will say this. Legend of Dragoon tells a very complete story. It's got original music that's tribal, electric. Like you get a nice, intermingling of different music styles, and all of it feels very fitting to the area that you're in or the battle. There's different battle scenes. Yeah. Speaking of the battle system, I mean, obviously it shines there, but you can also change the camera angle, environments, the CG cutscenes, the voice lines. I mean, if you really want a game where you're going to get a full, complete story, which is what I care about more than pretty much anything in a video game. Like if you nail the graphics, if you nail these other things, but you don't have a good story, or you feel like you've lacked there, I shut down. I shut off. Yeah. I don't care. Dragoon is that game. It really does hit the nail on the head. And when you finish it, when you complete the experience, you really do feel like you've done something incredible. So I won't say what does it do better. It more just holds its own among the greats of the time, which were the Final Fantasy 7, 9, and 10. And it fits right in there with them. So yeah, it's one you can't miss, honestly, from that era.
I love, like, it's so funny because obviously the next question was going to be why should someone play it, but I don't think we need to go into that because I think that sums it up quite well there.
It's not why someone should play it. Just go play it. Yeah,
just play this freaking game. Obviously, it's a game that came out in 2001. We're now in 2021, so 20 years ago that this released in North America and Europe, parts of North America and Europe. The question that is a bit trickier to ask, I guess, is how can someone play this? Like, how could they get their hands on it?
Well, I see your copy right there. So, yeah. If you got a PS1 lying around, but I got my copy right here, so there you go.
Yeah, beautiful.
And this was the original copy that I bought in 2001, and there's like a crack here.
Yeah,
they're falling out, but I love that. It's not a collector's piece for me.
I'm the same. I have the broken spindles, and I love the broken spindles. Make it feel like this has been used.
Like it literally just it doesn't hold the disc. So
same. This one came out. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a part of my history, and I'm never gonna let it go. Unless something happens to it. But obviously, I'm gonna do everything in my power for that not to happen. But yeah, this is the situation we got. It's like the discs have to be that
popping out
or else. So, but I love it, So if you want to play Legend of Dragoon, currently I don't have it my PS1 anymore. I sold it when I was a kid, and I wish I hadn't. But yeah, I played on a backwards compatible PS3. Speaking of the PS3, they do have the digital copy as well on the store, and I'm pretty sure we're getting something in the midst of the PS5 era where they're going to be moving old retro libraries.
Fingers crossed,
because Nintendo is doing it. Yeah. Nintendo's literally letting me play Mike Tyson's Punch Out on the Switch, and I'm like, like, yes, I remember this game.
That's the second time I've had Mike Tyson's Punch Out mentioned today because Sour Patch Gramps brought it up earlier as well.
And he brought it up last night, but literally, like, he said that, and I was like, no, same. I was literally playing that game on the Switch.
Awesome.
But I really think Sony needs to
Yeah.
Give us their full PS1 library, because honestly, I will say this, my favorite generation of consoles is still PlayStation 1.
I feel very much the same.
You look at these crystal cases, these CD cases, and at the time, everything was being made for everything. Like, you had all these hidden games that I still have yet to play today, which is kind of why I'm hoping they do this, like Japanese imports.
Yeah.
And again, I talked about those demo discs, but they would send these, and then they would always include one Japanese import. And they were so interesting. And I like Bushido Blade and Trap Gunner. Trap Gunner, probably no one knows Trap Gunner, but I
know Trap Gunner. That had really weird gameplay, but like really interesting gameplay. It was like,
you literally are 1v1 in a room, and you have your specific traps for that character, and you just put them, and then you battle with traps. But I loved it. I want to play it again.
But like you said, there were so many games like Kudelka is a game that I found in a store and fell in love with. Legend of Cartia. As you say, there were so many, and that's even just the JRPGs. If we go outside of that, we go into Tamba and all these amazing games.
Which
so
I still haven't played.
I kind of love when I hear people say I haven't played that, because I'm just like, you're going to have such a great experience.
Just the demo, and I had a great experience with the demo. Once again, I'm like, I love this game. Why don't I? It was hard to find. Impossible.
And that's the great thing with Legend of Dragoon now. Like, anybody watching this who's like, hey, I love JRPGs. I've seen this floating around. I haven't really given it a chance. This is your opportunity to have a first time experience with Legend of Dragoon. Yeah. And yeah, you only get one of those.
Yeah. So if you can't play it on like me, because I kept my backwards compatible PS3 and I played on that because it plays PS1 discs. Definitely the digital copy. I guess the only other option right now is to emulate it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which I mean, and like what I always try to recommend to people is like, the thing is, nobody who make these games is going to receive a cent from you buying the game now off some shady guy on eBay who's overcharging you for it. But I still try to urge people, like, even just for that feeling of, like you say, having the jewel case and being able to look at it and being like, just if you can pick up a copy of it, if it's not something that's like, because I remember for years I wanted Panzer Dragoon Saga, and that was always like $200, and I was like, I'm not paying $200 for Panzer Dragoon Saga. Yeah. But that's if you can, if it's on eBay for $12, grab it, emulate it. You're fine. You own the game. It's fine. You're doing it legally then. Yeah.
No, honestly, if I could go back in time in my gaming career, the one thing that I would do is obviously have money, have fun, but. I would literally just go to the store back when the PS1 was just the thing and buy all the PS1 games I could. I would just want all of those games because, like, people love their Nintendo cartridge. I would love my PlayStation 1 just random games, because that era to me is just magical. Like, I feel like the magic of gaming is a bit lost on the new era.
Agreed.
But I look back at PS1 before video games were like a bunch of guys in a boardroom in suits talking about how they can make money off of players, gamers. And it was just like, we're going to make everything that's interesting to us. We're going to put our passion and soul into this game and hope that 100 people buy it. That was the mentality back then. And now it's like, no. How can we like fit in some loot mechanics and how can we just get
drop boxes and all this? Yeah.
So like, PS1 era for me was the last kind of era where that was true, you know? I think you've actually touched on something that I'm going to briefly talk about, which is that I feel like if you were to look at stuff like musical generations, I feel like the PS1 era was the 70s, where you got a lot of experimental, weird, wild, and same with movies. 70s were for the movies when stuff got weird, wild, and experimental. 80s were when things got a bit more poppy and more mainstream, like, you know, and again, if you look at the PS2 era, that was where it started to become, because GTA 3 exploded and suddenly everyone and their grandmother's cat was playing PlayStation 2. And now, as you say, PS3 is like, PS3 and above, it feels like, as you say, there's less risks being taken with storytelling, which is why we've talked it before off mic about Death Stranding and stuff. And when you see a game like that is taking these wild, big swings on a massive scale budget, you're like, this just doesn't happen anymore. Like, this type of game generally. It used to. And that's the reason I actually personally love Death Stranding. But I mean, we don't have to dive into that. But
yeah, that's another show.
yeah. But yeah, that mentality is what I used to love about games, and it's hard to find nowadays. It really is, and so many people, like, there's the internet's part of the issue because you can review bomb anything and all this stuff. It's unfortunate, but that's why I go back and I play these games, because they just it's like watching an old film you love. It's literally, when I boot up Legend of Dragoon, it brings me back to a simpler time. And I'm not this adult in 2021. I'm a kid again, loving what I did back then, just as the same I do now. So, yeah.
That's a great way for me to segue into talking a little bit about you and what you do. So, as I say, I came across you on Twitch doing this, and Twitch is such a great platform for allowing people to share those fond memories with one another and stuff. But you also have a YouTube channel where people can go and check out. Like, I watched your Wukong reaction trailer, really enjoyed that. And what I'd kind of be urging people to do here is definitely check out your stuff. Like, I'll put links in the description down below. But if you want to tell us a little about where people can find you across the internets and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. So I'll start with just, I got laid off from my position last year during COVID times. It was definitely due to COVID. And so I decided, you know what, I've been talking about doing YouTube or getting online and sharing my experiences in gaming with other people, but also enforcing a message of positivity behind that. So I got on YouTube. There was a couple people who inspired me, but one of the main ones was Mr. Rogers, because I used to watch Mr. Rogers back in the day. Yeah, but I didn't appreciate him until I was an adult. I was like, oh my God, this guy actually is responsible for like some of the positivity and things I talk about today, but I just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
So I thought, why not be like a Mr. Rogers on YouTube, a Mr. Rogers on Twitch? And then, but, you know, incorporate video games into that, because so much of video game culture is so toxic nowadays. It's unfortunate. You have like me versus you, competitive gameplay, Call of Duty, like all these shooters where you're literally like, you just hear people screaming at each other. But back in the day, gamers were a tight-knit community. Every game was beloved by everyone because it was nerdy. It wasn't cool. It wasn't niche. It was like, if you love video games, then the other guy that you found that loved video games, you're like, oh my God, I love video games. So it didn't matter what game you liked, you know?
It was literally a Step Brothers moment. It was like, did we just become best friends?
Best friends, yeah. But anyway, so I got on YouTube for that. So my YouTube is Mr. Megaboss, which Paddy said he'll kindly post a link. Yeah. But basically, what I do is, mental health discussions. I incorporate video games in that. Like I said, I do analysis of games. It's a new channel, so I haven't done a ton with it. But this is another thing that will be getting added. Just interview segments and I don't know, just game discussion. So that's we're all passionate gamers here. Right?
That's why you need to subscribe now, so that when the channel does blow up, you can be like, oh, I knew Mr. Megaboss when he was at like 150 subscribers or whatever.
Yeah. So
get on it.
My last video was actually there was a big gap because I found Twitch. And when I found Twitch, I was streaming to 0 people. And so what I decided to do with there, and anyone who is struggling to make it on Twitch, it's very simple. What you do is you jump in people's chat and you just connect with people. Twitch is about connection. It's about community. You get in. So when I was streaming to 0 people, I was like, I'm doing something wrong. Absolutely. You're not just supposed to sit there and stream to no one. If you expect someone to come into your community, you have to go into theirs and you have to find people and search by your favorite games, search by your favorite experiences. And don't just focus on big streamers, focus on small streamers. They need help.
100%. So, I mean, just a quick side note there, which is that how I ended up coming across you and everyone that I've become so invested in with this community is I literally, in my recommended channels, don't ignore your recommended channels, because sometimes they get it right. Because I was just on Twitch one night and I saw recommended channels, Final Fantasy VI, Miss Casey Diaz, didn't know who Casey was, but I saw that one of my favorite Final Fantasies ever was being played. And so immediately my brain went, Final Fantasy VI, I gotta watch this. And now through Casey, I met Ali, I met you, I met so many amazing I met wonderful people that, like you say, the worst thing you can do on Twitch is ask the question of why is nobody coming to my channel and supporting me if you're not going to do the same, reciprocate and go out and support the people that you enjoy.
You can't expect that. You can't. Yeah. It's unrealistic to say, well, people need to tune in me, but I won't bother tuning into them. It's like, that's not how community works. You know, and it's not a follow for a follow either. You got to put in the time and the work, just like anything else in life. Like, and it shouldn't feel like a chore. Like you just got to find the right niche or community that to fit in and talk with people, connect, spread joy, spread positivity. Because guess what? That stuff comes back. That stuff comes
does.
back.
100%.
A quick shout out though to Miss Casey Diaz,
Yes.
Hard Alley, Moy Barajas. They're all on Twitch and they're our good friends. So yeah.
And they're fingers crossed, like they're all doing episodes of this show too. So as I say, what I see from Twitch as well was I said, like, I have an opportunity here to reach out to these people that I enjoy watching and speak to them and nerd out about, like you say, like the old days where you would sit in a room with your mate and just nerd out about the things you love. But to do that digitally, Mr. Megaboss, I'm going to say a massive thank you. And I am going to also I'm just going to mention about your Discord as well. You also have a Discord. So like, is that something that you are kind of actively promoting, or is it like something that? Yeah,
it is. Quickly about the Discord it's a way for me to connect with people who I meet on my connected networks, YouTube, mainly Twitch. So we promote it, and what we use my Discord for specifically is to raid small streamers every weekend. So
so kind. That's so nice.
Yeah, I love to do it because I remember streaming to 0 people.
Yeah.
So what we do as a community is we get in a Discord call all together and we quietly raid into small streamers, and then we blow up their chat, follow them. We make them feel special. We make them feel wanted, because that's the last thing we want on Twitch is for someone to say, I give up. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. No one likes me, or feel unwanted, when quite the opposite. We want that community. We want to know people. We want to share in our experiences, because that's what it really is all about, building bridges and connecting with people. So as we sign off, because what I'll do is I'll say that if you'll come back for a future episode, I'd love to have you back for another episode of maybe a different series. 100%.
And just on that note, and bringing it back to Death Stranding, what you said there is literally like Death Stranding. Build those bridges, connect people.
What do you mean? I didn't pull that from anything. That was right from the heart. Well, no, but that's why that game spoke to me, though.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Especially in this age, I totally agree. Mr. Megaboss, thank you so much, guys. There are links in the description. Go and support this wonderful person who has made it their objective to go out and support people as well. Like that's, and as Mr. Megaboss said, don't support people in expecting that you're gonna get something in return. Do it because you enjoy doing it. I'm gonna say here that I sometimes say that I selfishly support people because I get a good feeling out of it. Like I get a good feeling out of helping people sometimes. So I feel like I am sometimes kind of selfish in that.
There's nothing wrong with that's it. If you're gonna be selfish about one thing, that's a good thing to be selfish about. So yeah.
Damn straight. Yeah. Guys, check out Legend of Dragoon, available on the PS3, available on PS1. Check it out via emulator if you can pick up a copy, like we have. And guys, as per always, I'm going to sign off with what I always say, which is let's survive together and peace out. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you so much, boss.